Kampala is a landlocked country. It's located by the shore of Victoria Lake.
The city is growing in slums at a very fast pace. In temperature, we already have an increase of about more than 1 degree Celsius, and it is expected a further increase of 4 degrees. With regards to precipitation, the trends are not very clear, but anyway, there are going to be more intense and more frequent rainfalls. And this is going to be one of the biggest problems because of impervious surfaces, wetland invasion, and an increased runoff and flooding hazards. We actually have a very strange and unique microclimate in top of this lake, a big cloud about the size of Lake Victoria. It's said to have caused 5,000 deaths a year in sudden storms.
A lot of the reasons that vulnerability is caused is because 50% of the housing is in slums. Most of the urbanization that has taken place in the last 20 years has been in the slums. 45% of those houses are in flood-prone areas. Most of the slums occupy wetlands with poor regulatory enforcement. Most people use the pit latrines and septic tanks, which are usually not very effective.
More than 80% people occupy wetland and make a living in wetland.
In the adaptive capacity, we have these two sets of issues. For one part, a very high number of initiatives in Uganda and specifically in Kampala as related to other East African countries. There are over 84 institutional actors actively involved. There's a real need to enhance coordination to avoid duplication of adaptive initiatives. And we see in the graph there CO2 emissions by countries, and Uganda from this list is second to last. This really speaks of itself. We really should focus on adaptation rather than mitigation.
We feel like most of the risk is caused by high levels of vulnerability because most of the wells and springs are contaminated with fecal matter. Only 55% of drinking water is safe. There's a high incidence of waterborne illnesses and diseases that's caused by these unsanitary conditions. The city relies on natural drainage systems that are clogged with garbage. Wetland overuse and destruction of forest areas, deforestation, has caused infiltration of the water when it rains to be abated, which means that the water, instead of being absorbed into the ground, is free to ride downhill and cause lots of flooding and damages infrastructure, as well as causes sanitation risks. If you notice that most of the wetland invasion, which means people moving into these wetlands, is around the outside, for the most part, of the city. We have the maps of the slums, and we see the location of the slums, and it kind of gives an indication that a lot of the wetland invasion has been caused by the existence of the slums and people moving more to the outskirts of the city. The city is divided into 5 divisions with 99 parishes. We came up with a plan to change the way that these divisions are implemented. In other words, we want to reconstitute the administrative boundaries so that they are based on the watersheds or these drainage micro basins. This would prioritize the environmental in all urban governance and watershed communities.
We think this is a real profound way of mainstreaming environmental lens to every aspect of urban governance. And that's the whole idea with these watershed communities, for the same people who share the same runoff problem to be seated in the same table.
The second policy mechanism is wetland public protection. Wetland area is the heart of economics and ecosystem. In the wetland ecosystem, it has a nature capacity to clean itself. It's called kidney function. If we build this and we try to keep the wetland protection, the city water system will be relying on this wetland, and water infrastructure will be less expensive.
I just wanted to add that Kampala has a long tradition of being a garden city, urban planned movement, and this would turn that garden city maybe into a wetland district city, mainstreaming the environment as we did not only from the governance side, but also from the physical infrastructure side.